Hello and welcome to another edition of the Door 14 Hockey Podcast. After the weekend that saw the quarterfinals of the EIHL playoffs decided, that's exactly what we're here to talk about. And joining me, for the moment at least, is Marty.
Hello. Do you know how hard it was for me just to hold my mouth whenever the music stopped, not to actually introduce the show? It's a coup. I'm telling you. I put it in our chat. This is a coup. This is the start of it.
So you will have noticed, if you're a regular watcher or listener, that obviously normally at the start here, unless he happens to be off, normally Marty starts the talking here. This time around, because I have very, very much bitten off more than I can chew by inviting people on, as people will know if they've been following our socials for the last few days, will know that the hope is that we're going to have some guests joining us over the course of this episode. Because I've done that, I think executive decision was made to put me in charge of what might be an absolute train wreck. That being said, there is also the fact, Marty, that you may or may not have to drop off. We all know, and we talked to you last podcast, you're a new father, you have responsibilities out with of the podcast, which is absolutely shocking if you ask me. But that's the reasoning. So we'll start the way we always do, and we'll do the little bit of chat first. Marty, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. As I say, it was a bit unusual to start it this way, but you're right. I think it was one of those ones where, as we announced last week on the podcast, I am now a dad of pretty much a very young newborn. So yeah, my attention has been drawn somewhere else, so I have to kind of potentially run off. So, I think the decision was made. It's probably best you kind of lead this one because I can't guarantee it. And also, I probably couldn't have put the work in this week, to get it all put together as you've done. So thank you, John, because it's been you've done a lot of work for this podcast. And we'll see how it goes. Fingers crossed it all works out well.
You say I've put a lot of work in. I've badgered a lot of teams. Had some successes, some failures, as we'll see later on. To be totally honest, it's going to be a massive surprise who logs on and who's ready to chat with us. I think I've got a rough idea of who to expect over the next, hopefully 45, 50 minutes maximum. There is the outside chance that one of our colleagues might even jump in at a random point. We don't know. You'll notice that Aaron and Dave aren't here. Aaron, I believe, was last minute pulled into a school race. So kind of told us that he may not be available. He might drop in. Dave, not 100% sure. Not quite yet off the injured reserve list. He's playing injured, if you like, so he may end up taking this shift off. But Marty, let's shift into gear. Let's get chatting because, let's say, we've hopefully got people who are going to join us later as the episode progresses. Let's start by looking at the weekend past. We know it was the first week of the 2-week playoffs, and we have our results effectively. So will we take them a tie at a time? Just to be sort of nice about it. Start at the top here. Sheffield Fife. Let's be totally honest, I got this prediction completely wrong. I think everyone else who was on with us last week got it 100% right. I think I was completely on the other side of this. I got everything wrong apart from the two bottom ones there. The top two I got completely wrong. Sheffield running out 9-4 winners in Sheffield, and then backing that up with a 4-1 win in Fife the following night for a 13-5 aggregate score win. Marty, I said if Fife could keep it to 1 or 2 in Sheffield and bring it home, they were in with a shout. Turns out that wasn't true at all.
Yeah, I think that first night, with the scoreline in that first night, I think that kind of put the nail in the head. I think once that scoreline kind of went, I think Fife had a real uphill battle for that second game. And to be honest, after that first game, I think we were talking to each other in the WhatsApp group, and we were kind of like, there's probably no chances of a return. Coming back that goal deficit, there was no way of it ever happening. 13-5, tough in the end. Was it kind of something we were expecting to see, or in the end, probably. Disappointing, but
yep. So moving on, we had obviously Sheffield move on as the top seed and will play in the first semi-final. The second tie, then Manchester Guildford. I called this completely wrong. I was going maybe more particularly with my heart on this one, and thought that realistically, I thought Manchester had this with the run that they'd had. Guildford had a little bit of a slide towards the back end of the season, but really they pulled it out come playoffs. A 5-1 win in the first leg for Guildford in Surrey, and a 4-0 shutout in Manchester the following night for a 9-1 win on aggregate. There wasn't much of a challenge in this one, was there, Marty?
No, and I mean the thing is, we talked about this in last week's podcast. We kind of were talking about that Manchester Guildford matchup, and we kind of felt whenever we were chatting last week, I think we all kind of agreed. We thought this would be the probably the closest matchup out of all of the ones that what we've seen. As you mentioned, John, Manchester had that really strong end towards their season. Had pulled back all those games. Guildford had a good season as they were going along, kind of steady going along. But we know Guildford are a team that can kind of, when it comes to those big tournaments, when it comes to these tournament type style games, it comes to these tournament type style, matchups, Guildford always pull it out of the bag. We've seen it in the Challenge Cup. We've seen it last year, playoffs as well. Guildford have the ability to do that, and I think that's exactly what they've done again this time around. They came into this game against Manchester, and they absolutely dominated 9-1 overall in aggregate. I mean, there's no denying there. Guildford deserve to move on to that playoff final weekend. It'll be good to see them again. We had a brilliant weekend last year with them. The fans, if you remember, in Nottingham, just having a chat with them and that banter with them, and it's great to see them there again.
I'll be honest, while I wasn't drinking as much as I normally do at playoffs, I drank a lot still that weekend and remember very, very little. Marty, let's move on to the next tie then. Cardiff versus Dundee. This one, tighter affair when you look at the results over the two legs, but when you put it together, there was still a fair gap between these teams. Cardiff with a 4-2 win on the first leg in Cardiff, I believe the first leg was in Cardiff, and a 3-2 win on the night in Dundee for a 7-4 differential. So much tighter than the other two legs that we saw, but Cardiff, I think, proven their gravy here and moving on once again to the playoff final weekend.
Yeah, and again, it's disappointing because we were kind of talking about how we would have really loved to seen one of the Scottish teams advance in that playoff final weekend, and it was really disappointing because I felt like Dundee. I don't feel that scoreline represented that tie-up over that weekend. I felt that Dundee were really well in that tie-up between Cardiff, and I just felt like, especially in that second game in Dundee, they really tried really hard to kind of claw back what they could, but just wasn't enough. But yeah, disappointing because it would be nice to see Dundee and I say one of those Scottish teams advancing on, because so I think in our heart we always like to see some of the Scottish teams moving on and doing well, and just almost wish it didn't happen this time around.
I think you're 100% right, and I think there were 9 teams in the league that really, really hoped it was going to be Fife out the Scottish teams that probably moved on there. Marty, the final tie to chat about then, and this was the tightest affair of the quarterfinals. Belfast-Coventry. A 2-1 win for Belfast in Belfast gave them the marginal, slimmest of margins going away to Coventry, a place which is difficult for any team to play in, but especially a Coventry who, over the last several seasons, they specialise in postseason. We know how dangerous they can be, but they couldn't overcome the deficit, and realistically, it was on the game sheet, it's a 1-1 game. The goal in Coventry from Coventry was scored at 59 minutes, 59 seconds, 0.999 milliseconds, effectively, to round off the game. So Belfast progress on with a 3-2 aggregate scoreline there. What's your thoughts on this tie?
As a Giants fan, it was a tough watch. It was a tough game to watch. Both legs. It was always going to be tough. You mentioned it already. You already said it. Coventry does tend to be that team each year when it comes to playoff games and comes to a playoff tournament. They do tend to kind of almost step up their game, and we've seen that in previous years. It was a close, very, very close game, and it's the closest out of all of them. Either way, I mean, I genuinely, there's a point on the Sunday game in Coventry I kind of thought, this is gonna go to overtime. This is gonna go further on. But lucky enough, that one goal was enough. That one goal deficit from Belfast the night before was enough to secure that place, which is lucky for Belfast.
Yep, absolutely. So with those results then, we have confirmation of what the semi-finals will look like. Semi-finals then, set up this way. The Sheffield Steelers will take on the Guildford Flames in semi-final 1, and that's at 3 o'clock on Saturday. While the Cardiff Devils and the Belfast Giants will meet once again in a repeat of last year's playoff final, and that's set to face off at 7 o'clock. We'll come back to talk a little bit about the fact that Premier have picked this up, Marty, probably towards the end of the podcast. But to talk about the first of these matchups, we are very, very pleased to have some guests to bring on. We have Brett Ferguson, captain of the Guildford Flames, and taking things from a Steelers perspective, we have David from the 3 on 3 podcast. More than likely the happiest man on this podcast right now, given that his team have lifted 2 trophies already. Gentlemen, thank you very much for giving up your time this evening to come on with us and chat a bit of hockey. Brett, start with you. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate the chance. I always love talking about hockey, and it's a big weekend for everyone. So I'm excited. I'm ready to go.
David, a big year for 3 on 3. You guys hit the 100 episodes, but especially a big season for you being the resident Sheffield fan there.
It's been good to be a Sheffield fan this year. You know, it all comes this weekend. You know, the big weekends, they don't get any bigger, and I don't think this weekend will be a disappointment in that format whatsoever.
Yeah, so Brett, if we can start with you. Guildford coming off maybe let's perhaps say a sketchy run-in towards the end of the regular season. The team was sliding down and people were starting to question across the league how things were going. But like we said earlier on, you were backstage listening to Marty and I having a chat there about the quarterfinal games. You guys have proved you are a team never to be discounted. How are preparations going for this weekend?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we did have a bit of a bad stretch there coming towards the end of the season. But there's always things going on too that people don't know about, right? Like we lost our starting goalie for the rest of the year. You know, we do have a very capable second goalie, so that's not a big problem. But we've had some tough injuries, especially down the stretch where, you know, we lost one of our centermen, and that was having depth down the middle is one of the most important pieces of a team. So it was, you know, we were trying to figure things out a little bit. A lot of those games too, at one point we had lost 12 of 14 games, and you know, I think 5 of them were in overtime or shootout, and the rest were either by 1 or 2 goals. So you know, while the results look bad, the performance from the team wasn't terrible. Obviously you flip that script a little bit, and we might have won 10 out of 14 instead of losing 12 out of 14. So we were feeling confident going into the playoffs. Some guys were starting to get healthy, you know, like myself and a couple other guys. And we just knew, you know, I did notice you guys had said in your before I'd come on here that you I think you thought the first game was in Guildford, but the first game was in Manchester, and we knew going into Manchester it was going to be tough to come out of there with an aggregate lead. So we were thrilled to come out of there 5-1. Like, Manchester had a good team this year, and they were firing on all cylinders going into the playoffs as well. So to come out of there 5-1 was like, we were pumped, and, you know, the whole kind of feeling the whole weekend or leading up to that was come out of Manchester tied or better, and we'll take care of business at home. And fortunately we had been better than tied, and at home we had a good feeling about being at home for the last game of the year.
David, if I come to you then, the tie for the quarterfinals, the Flyers against the Steelers, there were, I said it earlier on when we were chatting about it, there were 9 teams all hoping that a Scottish team was going to make it to playoff final weekend, and I think the vast majority of them were hoping it was going to be the Flyers. I said last week on the podcast that I thought if if Fife could keep it to 1 or 2 in the away leg down in Sheffield, with no away fans. If they could do that, bringing it back to Kirkcaldy, they were in with a shout. It turns out the exact opposite was true. The Steelers put their foot on the Flyers' throat and just pressed and pressed and pressed.
We said exactly the same. If Fife could keep it tight, take it to Kirkcaldy, that place full, their fans will just get behind their team in any way, shape or form, by hook or by crook, and like you say, it went. So, and every time Fife got into the game, we just put, up the gears a couple and made sure that, the tie in Kirkcaldy was as damaged less as possible. Make sure no injuries going into the Final Four. And in fairness, for the first 10, 15 minutes in Sheffield, it was a good game back and forth. And then Sheffield just upped the gears and done, in fairness to, I'm saying respectfully to most teams this season, they've done that too, and just upped the gears and got the win and got the goals. And it was spread, Cole Shulger had a great night, a couple of goals for him. The first leg, really, and I know a lot of people was hoping that Fife could do what they did the year before in the Challenge Cup and knock us out, but thankfully this time they didn't. And from a Sheffield perspective, it's good that the job was done and move on to this weekend.
Brett,
sorry, Mark,
I had a
ahead.
question. Oh, sorry. Brett, I was just going to ask a quick question. I was mentioning earlier on, I was talking earlier about Guildford, and Guildford have a history of, showing up for these big tournament style games, so obviously like the Challenge Cup games, playoff games last year. How do the players, in terms of, from your point of view, in terms of, leading and everything else, how do the players change? Do they have to switch mentality from, that league? Obviously, our playoffs are very different from, NHL playoffs. You've got the knockout style, one game, pick that game, move on to the next part. How do you get that mentality going to make sure, focus is on, this is the one game, one chance? How do players start to focus on that now coming into this weekend?
Yeah, for sure. And, luckily we've had quite a bit of continuity through our lineup with Guildford. So we do have guys that have experience in these situations. But for guys, their first time coming over, it is strange that one game can mean so much. And it, I'm sure you guys all notice while you're watching playoff hockey, and when you get to the later rounds of the Challenge Cup, it takes a step up from the regular season. Like the regular season hockey is great, but everyone just seems to elevate their game. The intensity's up, the fans are louder. All the mistakes are kind of in a microscope at that point. Like everything is magnified. So that's kind of just the message we try and send to the players, especially the guys who haven't been a part of it before, is, one, you can't put too much pressure on yourself because it is another game and you're just trying to win the game. But two, there's no favorites in a one game showdown. Like it's, especially when a team doesn't have home ice advantage, you just got to win one game, and you break that down into periods or even 10-minute segments. And you just try and win all your battles within those 10 minutes and try and win that period. And then you gear up and you try and win the next period. And hopefully over the course of 60 minutes, you've done enough to win the game, and then you move on to the next one. So there is a real beauty in the one game matchups, because it's anyone's game. And you might look at the standings from the entire year. That kind of all goes out the window. It's one game, and that's kind of the way we approach it. Yeah.
And Brett, this is obviously a repeat of the Challenge Cup final. It was a 3-win win on the night for the Steelers that night. Does that help to get the guys up for this game?
Yeah, I think obviously we want a little bit of redemption, and that was a great precursor for us to the finals here. And we were up against it in Sheffield that night. They had their fans were so loud, and they were cheering them on, and that team was rolling at that point. Our backs were against the wall going into that game, and we're kind of looking forward to playing them in a venue here where hopefully 9 out of 10 teams fans will be cheering for us. Yeah. Yeah.
David, looking back at the Steelers then, if you look at the head-to-head this season, it's essentially sitting 6 wins to Sheffield and 1 overtime win to Guildford. The Steelers are a team this season who have been in the ascendancy. The depth in that squad is absolutely unbelievable. Do they ride on the back of the results that have come? We talked on the podcast a couple of weeks ago about the fact that this team has done it all so far, and we thought, was there going to be a drop-off, if you like, at playoffs? The Grand Slam is the hardest thing to do, and I hate to use those two words right now when we're just at the semi-final stage, but with that depth, surely that's going to be key for the Steelers going into this game against a Guildford on the rise at this point.
You'd think so, but like Brett said, it's a one game, anything can happen. Just looking at the seedings in terms of this, Burnham could have an absolute stellar game. Guildford's team with 9 out of 10 fan bases will be supporting them, no doubt about it. And they could just do something and we've seen it many times at the Final Four. So it's not a given. If I'm honest, from a Sheffield perspective, I'm happy to be playing Guildford only because you mentioned the words Grand Slam. For us to do that, the first team to Prentice is a team that's going to be hurting, given that you mentioned the Challenge Cup win and the league win that got us the title. They're going to want to stop this. They'll be hurting there. So from a Sheffield angle, they're if we want to know we want this, you've got to earn it. And Guildford, we know Guildford are good. And I'm not saying it because Brett's on there, that they've got talent up and down the lineup. It's not going to be easy, but we've had the depth and it's shown throughout the season, but you have to turn up. You can't just go, we've done it so far, because if you do that, and this weekend out of them all, any team, if you just turn up thinking you've got it, any team's just going to destroy you. So from Sheffield perspective, yes, we have the experience of it because we've done it so far. We just have to do it again. And you roll the dice and you go with, because, the games against Guildford have been great. That cup final, from the fans' perspective, it was a very good cup final. Guildford wasn't out of it, until the very depth of it. So, then they went back and forth. So if it's going to be another back and forth game, it's going to be great for the fans watching it. So Sheffield have got to turn up. It's a new tournament. It's, we've won the league. Yeah, that's all done. That's the past. For this weekend, you've got to turn up. You've got to show up. The best players have to be the best players, and you roll the dice and you go from there.
Absolutely. If I can ask you both one last question before I let you go here, guys. Brett, I'll come to you first with this one. To go through, let's say you're going to go all the way through and you're going to lift playoff trophy. What do you think is the key to success for the Guildford Flames going into this weekend?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I mean, there's a lot of things that are going to go into being successful this weekend. Obviously, we're up against the top team to start, and for us too, that's kind of the way we look at it. Is if we can play a game that's good enough to beat the top team, a very deep Steelers team. All we have to do is replicate that a second time the next night, and we'll beat anyone else as well. So when we approach that game against Sheffield on Saturday afternoon, we're just looking to win battles. We're looking to keep them, keep their speed to the outside. They have a ton of speed and a ton of depth and offensive ability. So if we can limit their chances and kind of force them into making some mistakes in a one game thing, that's probably going to be a close game, and like David said, that there'll probably be some back and forth, and I'm sure it'll be a very entertaining game. That's kind of what we're looking to do. We're not looking to be fancier. We're not looking to be do anything crazy. We're just trying to win our battles and keep their speed out of the middle of the ice, and I think if we do that, we can give ourselves a chance.
Great. And David, the same question for the Steelers. What do you think is key to a potential Steelers success this weekend?
We have to bring our A game, and that's both nights. When I'm saying this, if we play the final, we're playing another good team, whether it's either Cardiff or Belfast. We have two very good oppositions that we have to face, and we have to bring our A game. And as I mentioned, yes, we've done it. We just have to do it again, and we give ourselves. If we do that, we give ourselves the best chance. None of it will be easy. It's playoff hockey. It shouldn't be easy. If we do it, then hopefully we see Robert Dowd lifting the third piece of silver. But we've got to earn it. And if we can bring our game both nights, all being well.
Well, gentlemen, Brett, David, thank you very much for your time tonight to give us the perspective from a Guildford Flames and Sheffield Steelers side of things. And thank you very much for your time this evening.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'll see you guys at the weekend.
I've
Thank
got
you
to
very
hold
much.
my hand up. I wish none of us are making it because we've all got tiny little humans to look after.
Oh, fair enough. Okay. I thought
But
maybe you
guys,
were. I
enjoy the
thought.
weekend, David. I know you guys are going as well. So brilliant stuff with the 3-on-3 podcast. Tune in every week. Loving what you guys are putting out. So Brett, good luck with the team this weekend. David, good luck with the podcast.
No, thank you
Thanks
very
so
much.
much.
Cheers, guys. Thanks. Well, that is semi-final 1. We'll come back and we'll do our own little breakdown of this. But we have some people waiting in the wings to talk through semi-final 2. We look ahead and we've got a replay, as I said earlier, of the 2023 playoff final. To join us and chat all about that, we have a couple of people, and I say to chat about all that, I've got one guest who I don't want to panic because I'm not going to make him talk about his team like I promised. We've got Davey from A View from the Bridge, resident statman and podcaster extraordinaire from A View from the Bridge, from a Belfast Giants perspective. And from a Cardiff Devils perspective, we have Brendan. Now, Brendan, like I said, I'm not going to ask you to talk about playoffs coming. You did say to me you don't want your views put out there into the world. What you are here to talk about is something very cool. Davey, I'll come to you very, very quickly to talk about the Giants and to talk about the games coming. But there's something flashing in the background there, Brendan. And I just want to throw this up as well very quickly. Your LED jersey came up on our socials, this custom jersey. Give us a quick breakdown of it. We love jerseys here on the podcast. None of us own a Devils jersey for some very, very good reasons. But chat us through that jersey and how you did it.
Yeah, so the idea came about, I think I was watching the F1 last year and saw some sort of LED hats and thought, kind of cool, but hats not really kind of, you're not going to get a lot on a hat for ice hockey. So I was like, what if I could do it with a jersey? I've already played with LEDs in some other projects in the past, so I thought, why not have a go? So it's been coming up to maybe sort of 10 months of sort of work on and off to get it to work. But yeah, it's all been sort of in preparation for playoffs. So in the front is an LED screen, and then around to the side is a little computer to drive it all. And then I've got some controls and stuff so I can get it to do what I want it to do for the most part. Yeah, and a big battery to hopefully make it last the whole weekend.
You must get. You mean?
Completely...
You mean? Sorry, John. I knew I was going to say something there. Brendan, you must get a lot of attention. I mean, you've been running around obviously in Cardiff. You must get a lot of attention though from it in terms of just people being like, "What is going on here?" It does look pretty impressive. To be fair, when it was going on in the background, I can see it there behind your shoulder. I mean, it looks impressive.
Yeah, so I wanted to make it for playoffs, so I haven't worn it until playoffs started.
Okay.
So the Saturday past was the first game I took it to. Yeah, and the reaction was really good. I think lots of people were interested. I think had some people say that they could see it from the other side of the rink, which is obviously ideal, that if you're sat on one side, people on the other side can see what you put on it. It definitely got some attention on the screen. So yeah, I think the reaction was really good. Yeah, I've made a couple of tweets for this weekend, but it'd be really good to see a wider audience's reaction to it as well. There's some messages for the various teams on there, I'm sure.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask one thing as well. With the success of this jersey, are you going to be taking custom orders sometime soon?
Definitely not. It's been a labor of love to get it to work, but I think I'm in the hole probably about 350 quid to get it to work at this point. So I don't know, I might keep working on it, and sort of I think people have said, will you bring it next season? So definitely some more work to make to it. Maybe get it to sort of have a higher resolution screen again and do even more interesting things with it. But yeah, it will definitely be interesting to see what the action is this weekend, as long as they let me in the rink with it.
So Mr.
Brendan,
Mr. Todd Kalman hasn't been in touch to try and figure out some way to incorporate it in
No,
some way,
he
or
hasn't,
make money off it. No.
I did put the laughing cow logo on it at the weekend while it was on the screen, which didn't get the best reaction. So although the fans liked that one, so
Brendan, before I let you go, I said I wasn't going to ask you for a full breakdown of the weekend and everything. I'm going to ask you one very, very simple question before I let you go here. Do you think the Devils can do it?
If they turn up. That's probably the best answer. If they turn up, I think they've got a great team there. But it's just about making sure that you've only got 2 games to do it. So we'll see how they go.
Brilliant. Brendan, I'm going to let you go, but thank you very much for jumping on with us tonight just to chat about that jersey in particular. Brendan, thank you very much, and thanks for your time.
Cheers, bye.
Cheers, mate. Davey, sorry, that was a little interlude there. We were hoping to have somebody here representing the Devils, but clearly they're not overly interested. They have. They've got history with that as well, don't they? So we'll concentrate on the Giants then. We get to breathe a sigh of relief here. We're all Giants fans here, and we get to chat about the team that we all love. Looking at the head-to-head, let's look at the semi-final in particular first. Let's look at that. Cardiff sitting slight advantage on the head-to-head this season. Three regulation wins and an overtime win. Belfast with 2 regulation wins. But like we said, this is playoffs. It's different. It's a different atmosphere altogether. It's Nottingham. It's playoff final weekend. And it's a repeat of last year's final. The Giants, how do they sit going into this weekend?
It's actually a repeat of a number of finals, isn't it? There's been results gone for us and against us over the thanks, Paddy. Over the last lot of years. I don't think you can read too much into the season past. You know what's now in the past. Even we played them a couple of weeks ago. There, both teams experimented with lineups and line matchups. Both coaches not wanting to give too much away. I think the Devils played a different goalie on each night. So you know there's obviously goaltending questions. Who's going to play between the pipes for both teams coming up the weekend? And this is a very, very hard game to call. Obviously, my heart says I want us to win, but you know, very defensive performance is going to be needed. Especially, very going to have to be very disciplined. Special teams could win this game, so you know you want to be staying out of that box at all costs.
I suppose. Sorry, John. Davey, I was just gonna a quick question. My question was maybe just come from point of view of obviously the Giants. This is the only piece of silver where we're trying to aim towards this season. Obviously we've had a bit of a difficult season this year, and I think that's on a number of different areas. We've had difficulty. We've had power. We've had potential on paper. We've had we had at the very start of the season we had a number of players who were standing out, scoring goals. We had a bit of a slump in the middle. I know Adam, and you know Adam better than we do, but Adam probably be the first coach who would say we don't use excuses to justify how we've played this season. Obviously the Giants have had a number of I wouldn't say probably maybe worse than other teams, but they've had a number of injuries throughout the season, and they've been plagued with injuries this season. Given the fact that this is
I'd cut across you before you actually ask a question there, Marty. We have been worse than every other team. We have something between 300 and 400 games of man games missed. You look at Elijah Barriga hasn't played since the end of August. Mark Garside 4 games this season. Every time we've had a player back, a player goes down. Matt McLeod's out at the minute. Jeff Baum's out at the minute. Oliver Cooper's out at the minute. Who else got hurt at the weekend there? Jacob Friend didn't play at the weekend. And it's just been a conveyor belt, and it hasn't been minor injuries. It's been major injury after major injury all season long. David Goodwin missed games. He's came in. There isn't a player in that lineup that hasn't missed a game this season. And in all the years I've been doing like stats and stuff for the team, there's always been that one Iron Man or 2 or 3 guys who played every game. There's not a guy in that roster has managed to put a full season together. And even between the pipes, Jackson missed from it was the end of October right to the new year. Besco had to carry that load. Peter Cech coming in. It's just been dreadful for injuries. And yes, you say no excuse organization. You have to put a team out. You've got to play what you can, but it's a massive factor. Might be an excuse, but it's a huge factor in how the season's played out.
And it explains probably why it's so important for the playoffs. Then this playoffs, this last chance for the trophy, the last piece of silver this off available this season. It's really important games this coming weekend. I suppose they always are, but more so I think from a point of view of sorry, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Well, they are. We spoke briefly on the podcast the other night. I don't like previewing games as such in the weekend ahead, but The playoffs give you the highest high that you can get. You were down there last year, 40. Like the emotion, cried my eyes out. Big soft. You know, it gives you the lowest low as well. And we've had far more lows at playoff weekends. We've won it 3 times in our history. You know, we're coming on for 25 years old. That's our right. That should be wrong too. We should have another few of those banners hanging. But you know, you just go in. I guess it's a new wave of optimism. You've got to go in. The players will be going in just to lay everything in line. This is potentially their last game. A lot of them, it'll be their last game for the club, and I'm not giving any exclusive there. Rosters change. They always do every season. You know, not all these guys will be back for a various number of different reasons. Some will go to retire. Some will go on to Europe. Some will go back to North America. Some will go into the real world. Some will maybe stay in the league with other teams. Some will stay in Belfast, but they won't all. This is their last opportunity to do something as a group. And I think seeing them, they deserve something. Now, every team will say that they deserve something, but I really think that these guys have battled through. It's been a difficult season for a number of teams, for all the teams on various levels. But just in my heart, I feel these guys deserve something out of this season.
So, Davey, the same question to round up then that we asked the guys about the previous semi-final about keys to success. So I know you don't like doing the whole predictive thing, but let's say on Sunday evening the Giants have lifted the trophy. What is the key to that success? What do the Giants have to do?
Stay out of the penalty box.
2 games.
Stay out of the penalty box is going to be absolutely crucial. Limit offensive opportunities and bear down when we get those opportunities. We have to execute better than we've executed for a lot of the season in the games. And in crucial games, we have won at crucial times. It's when your big players have turned up. Goodwin, Lake, Tedesco have been great together. Coaches will try and shut that line down. So you need the secondary and tertiary scoring. You need the second and third line coming up with goals.
I'm loving the use of tertiary coming across to this podcast as well, Davey.
Oh, 3. You think we're on? You think we're getting what do you call it for it? Royalties for it? We're not. Just those. Playoff hockey is about being as simplifying the game as much as you can. Going into the corners, winning those battles, winning the forecheck, winning the back check, winning the XG, winning your face-offs. It's all hockey 101 stuff. You just have to be super simplistic. Take the opportunities when they come along, shut the opposition down. Goaltending battle will be huge. I don't know who's going to go. Jackson's kind of the guy with the shirt at the minute. Can't argue with his numbers. The team as a whole are the form team down the last 20 games, you know, in the league table. So, you know, they're coming in with a little bit of form. Last weekend, although it wasn't a high-scoring series, was a really well-played. Sunday night, we were so professional in the attitude that we just perimeter. We were a little perimeter on Saturday night, but we got the goals. And on Sunday night, we just kept them on the outside. We didn't let them in on Jackson. I think it was only 12, 13, 14 shots, something like that. And when the opportunity came along, you know, Tedesco's managed to take it.
Do you think this last weekend has been almost the most clinical that the Giants have been all season?
No, because I think we had probably, especially on Saturday night, many more opportunities to put the puck behind Cozen than we took. So I think we need to be more clinical on nets, but I just think surgically we limited them so much. We went hard into the corners. We were coming out with it more often than not. I'd mentioned on the podcast on Tuesday night now, talking about the amount of times that the puck was just in and out. We need to go and get ozone possession. That's the kind of team we are. We can grind teams down in the ozone. Stop saying one having shots at our end, but it just grinds them down, fatigue. And I think there's a fitness level in this team that's maybe slightly above others. If we can grind them down, then we're a very, very strong third period team.
Well, Davey, thank you very much for giving up your time for another podcast this week. You've been pulling double duty, at least this week. I know that you're heading down this weekend. Not jealous in the slightest. Due to poor scheduling and tiny humans, none of us are making it this year, which absolutely sucks. But I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I hope you get fingers crossed you have another experience on the ice this season like you did last season.
Be nice. So keep up the good work, lads. Love seeing what you are doing.
And same. We're only trying to emulate what's been done for a long time before us.
That seems like a long time too. But anyway, Enjoy the weekend watching it on the TV, and enjoy your little humans. They're only little for a while.
Oh,
Cheers, Davey.
thankfully. Cheers, Davey.
Cheers. Bye-bye, boys.
Bye. So, Marty, that could have been an absolute train wreck, bringing that many people on. We have never brought guests on live before, but collective exhale, it worked.
Yep.
So we've had a look now at the 4 teams. Well, 3.5, because nobody really wanted to talk about the Devils with us. Marty, let's go back. Let's have a look at the matchups for ourselves. Now that nobody's breathing down our neck and watching us when we come to doing predictions. The first game, the first semi-final, Sheffield, Guildford. What does your gut say?
Gut is saying Sheffield. Just because you can't look past the fact that they are on for their aim is for that Grand Slam. Their hope is for that Grand Slam. Everything you can see from fans' point of view is that Grand Slam. The only thing we can hope for Guildford in terms of how Guildford can pull this out of the bag would be, Brett said it, you kind of, the boys have to go in with the focus of, playing 10-minute shifts, playing each shift as it comes, looking at each period as an individual part of the game so that it kind of can focus and kind of take down the bigger thing, and hopefully go in with the passion of, like, we need to stop the Sheffield Steelers from getting that Grand Slam, and we need to be the people who put a stopper in that. And I suppose that kind of is motivation in and of itself. Would I like to see Guildford take it? Of course I would, be a Belfast Giants fan. Do I see it happening? Unfortunately, I don't. I just feel that Sheffield have that real drive. And again, you kind of mentioned earlier, we maybe hope that Sheffield kind of go in thinking we got this, and kind of maybe it'd be a bit like the Challenge Cup last year against the Five Flyers, where they kind of went in thinking, we have it, let's just go. But I think Sheffield, to be fair, from my point of view.
I probably agree with you. I think Sheffield are on form. They are the strongest team coming into playoff final weekend. There's no way to deny that. They've got 2 trophies. They had an enormous aggregate victory. In fact, they had 2 enormous victories, let alone the aggregate victory over the Five Flyers in the quarters. Guildford, the only thing I think sort of going into this for them is that they've got that impetus. It's a repeat, like I said, of the Challenge Cup final. They have that, I don't want to say pressure, because I don't think it is pressure. I think they've got that expectation potentially within the squad, and I think Brett Ferguson gave that impression that this Guildford team is up for this competition against Sheffield. Would they maybe have preferred that it was in a final? Maybe, but you've still got the opportunity to put them out of the competition. So they will come into this. My only problem when it comes to Guildford is, and I've said it before, but I wasn't going to say it to Brett when he was here, is they are eternal underachievers at that last step. They haven't lifted anything yet, and it's been that last step that's evaded them every single time, whether it's the Challenge Cup, whether it's the league, or whether it's playoffs. So for that reason, I'm going to agree with you, and I'm going to say it's Sheffield that make their way to the final on Sunday. The second tie-up then, a much, much closer affair, I feel, going into this one. Cardiff Devils, Belfast Giants, semi-final 2 at 7 o'clock on Saturday evening. What's your thoughts first off?
Well, as always, we have a bias. We're Belfast Giants fans, so we always want Belfast to succeed. We want Belfast Giants to be the ones who go on through to that final game on the Sunday. And I'm the same. I think Giants, and Davey mentioned there, the Belfast Giants have been the informed team coming out towards the end of that season, the last 10 games or whatever. They've been the most informed team. Let's hope the Belfast Giants can continue with that form. I asked Davey the question of the fact that, the Giants now, the silverware this is the last piece of silverware that the Giants can go for. It's the last grasp in terms of not trying to pull something good out of a bad season, because that's not the right way to, I suppose, it has been a tough season for the Giants. But it is one of those things that I think the Giants would want to have a real passion for. I think this is especially Coach Keefe, he's probably thinking to himself, we need to kind of focus on, bringing back something to Belfast, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that's enough to kind of drive them against Cardiff, and then finally into the final against whoever it is we face off against in the final.
Yeah, I think I've got to agree with you. I think the Giants, while it's a different squad, this season. The Giants as an organisation and Adam Keefe as a coach, we know what they did last season. We know what that team and what that organisation can do. And I'd like to think that going into this, while admittedly we are the lower seed here, we are the away team, if you like, for the semi-final. I feel like this team has it in them to take this. I don't think this is a huge offensive game. I feel like the Sheffield-Guildford game is going to come down to who scores that one more goal, or potentially 2 or 3 more goals. Obviously, that's how you win a hockey game. But I don't think this Cardiff-Belfast game is going to be a high-scoring affair. I think this is going to come down to net minding. It's going to come down to quality chances, and it's going to come down to who can execute better on the evening, on the night. And I think, again, with teal tinted spectacles on, I think the Giants have got that in spades over the Cardiff Devils. The head to head, as I talked to Davey about, doesn't quite write that or tell that story right now. But this is playoffs, and it's a different situation altogether. So, Marty, let's take that one step forward. We're obviously not going to be talking again until next week, when we're going to go back to slightly more regular programming and a regular podcast. And by then, we will know who the playoff champion is. But let's take our predictions forward. We've both agreed it's a Sheffield-Belfast final. Who lifts the trophy?
Well, Belfast, obviously, is who I want.
Correct answer.
Genuinely, it has to be the answer we're going to go for, because obviously Belfast Giants fans. If we look at it from a point of view of, I want to be Belfast. It hurts me to say that it's going to be Sheffield, but I think Sheffield have a point this season. This season has been an intense season for the Sheffield Steelers for completely different reasons. And I think, especially for Aaron, for their coach Aaron Fox. I mean, he came under a lot of pressure last year for not succeeding and not getting what he needed to get to and coming away with nothing. This year he went into the thing of he needs to prove something this season, and he's proved it. He's got 2 of the 3. They're going for that Grand Slam. They want the Grand Slam. They don't want the Belfast Giants to be the only ones that Grand Slam. I think 2001 was the last time I think they done a Grand Slam. They're going for it, and it's gonna be a tough. It's gonna be a tough matchup. Belfast is in my heart, but who knows?
Yeah, obviously I'm going to agree here, because it's quite weird whenever we get to this point in the season, because we put ourselves out there as being covering absolutely everything, but as soon as the Giants are involved, we just say the Giants are going to win absolutely everything because we're 100% convinced of it. So, I'd like to think that there'll be a bit of teal, white and red ticker tape on the side of that playoff trophy once again. I'm heartbroken that I'm not going to be there this season, if I'm totally honest. And I'm equally heartbroken because I feel like it's now the time that I'm going to have to change my my profile photo on all of my personal social medias away from me standing on the ice at the NIC last season holding all 3 trophies. It's sad times, and I am accepting thoughts and prayers for my pain as I change my profile photo across my socials. Marty, one last thing just to mention before we push on here and wrap up this special podcast for tonight. It's just to mention we got news finally of a TV deal for playoffs. It is pretty much as expected, and I believe it was actually an exclusive, even though it was pretty much in the listings already. But it was an exclusive on Tuesday night for A View from the Bridge. Where our good friend Mark Brooks was on the podcast and effectively released the news that it was going to be Premier Sports a few hours before the official press release went out on Wednesday. So Premier Sports will be broadcasting Elite League Playoff Finals Weekend. They're showing both semi-finals and the final, which is to be played at 5 p.m. on Sunday. Marty, I'm heartbroken they're not playing third place, or showing the third place game. Why not?
The Boak Trophy. I mean, it's the
Chunder Cup.
Go-to game. The Chunder Cup is the go-to game. I mean, I have massive FOMO at the moment about playoffs. I've kind of done that thing where I've been on already, and I can see friends and people we know Giants fans and other fans from across the league, we can see them all heading towards Nottingham, and we're getting the updates as they're all heading towards that direction. And I'm getting so jealous. Obviously, I'm no offense. I'm more happy to be here in this house with this tiny little human. I think that without doubt, but there's definitely still a little bit of FOMO about the fact I'm not going to be there this weekend. But it's live for anybody who does want to reach out and who wants to watch it. It is live. They're doing an offer for $9.99 for 2 months, for anybody who wants to buy it. The fact it's on Premier's
a month for 2 months. Let's be totally clear about that. It's not $9.99 for 2 months.
Sorry, yep, month
before anyone starts complaining to us when they get charged.
So if you want to pay for that, go for it. I'm not saying there's other places where you can watch it, but yeah, go for
it. Marty, with that, we are going to wrap up this special playoff pod part 2. Next week, we will be effectively back to normal. We're going to go back to our regularly scheduled programming with our usual 3 periods. There'll be a lot to talk about because the last 2 weeks we have purposely ignored the NHL and what's happening across there. There's a lot for hopefully the 4 of us all together again to chat about. We will obviously be talking about the outturn, whatever it is, of the playoff final weekend here in the UK as well. And so it leaves us just to mention...
More importantly, I'll be taking back my spot, so don't get comfortable. And we do
you say that, but your son might have something to say about that.
No, I'll be taking back. That's my spot. Thank you very much.
So just as we normally do, as we normally sign off, this is probably my last opportunity ever to do the sign off here. So you can catch us on all of our socials, Facebook, Instagram, X. You can get us on TikTok as well. Massive thank you to everyone who started following us over the last few days on TikTok, as I've been putting out some behind the scenes stuff, just giving people an idea of what's coming on this week's podcast. That's something that I'll continue to do. So if you want to get a little bit of an early idea of the stuff that we'll be talking about, jump over onto our TikTok. You can find all of those on @Door14Hockey. I will reconfirm once again that I will not be dancing on TikTok. And I can't even convince the other 3 guys to do anything on TikTok, so it's just going to be my face you see there. So I will be the official host of Door 14 TikTok, and you'll find that over there. You can also see all of our previous episodes, those couple of blogs that we did back when blogs were a thing. They're over on our website, door14hockey.com. And you can catch our audio podcasts on any podcast provider of choice. And also, don't forget, if you like video podcasts, head over to our YouTube channel, Door 14 Hockey, and subscribe, hit the bell so you get notifications every time we go live or we upload a new video. It leaves me just to say a final thank you to everyone who joined us on the podcast tonight. Brett Ferguson, captain of the Guildford Flames, David Grant from the 3 and 3 podcast, Brendan, our Cardiff Devils fan with the amazing LED jersey, and of course, Davey Majempsey from A View from the Bridge. Marty, thank you very much for joining me. I have been John.
I'm Marty.
Have a great week and a great weekend at Playoff Final Weekend if you are going. Have a good one.